Power rarely introduces itself as power. It prefers the softer language: security, necessity, survival. It speaks in the tone of urgency, as though history itself is breathing down its neck. The modern state, especially one born from trauma, often constructs its identity around a single central fear: that what happened once could happen again. This fear is not irrational, but when fear becomes the primary lens through which all decisions are filtered, something subtle begins to erode. The policies of the Israeli government, particularly in the treatment of Palestinians, reveal a paradox at the heart of state power. The more a state seeks absolute security, the more it risks undermining the very moral legitimacy that it depends on. Because security, when pursued without constraint, does not remain a shield. It becomes a logic, a system that justifies itself. Every action becomes preemptive, every resistance becomes proof of threat, every criticism becomes hostility. But philosophy asks a deeper question: can a system built on perpetual control ever produce genuine peace? The answer depends on how we define peace. If peace is merely the absence of immediate violence, then control can simulate it. But if peace requires dignity, autonomy, and mutual recognition, then control begins to look less like protection and more like domination. And here lies the ethical tension. A state has the right, perhaps even the obligation, to protect its citizens. Yet that obligation is not infinite. It is bound by the rights of others. And I feel like that's pretty obvious. And when those boundaries dissolve, protection becomes indistinguishable from oppression. The troubling aspect is not the actions themselves, but the framework that makes them seem inevitable. A framework where alternatives are dismissed before they are imagined, where the language of survival often overrides the language of justice. History teaches us that systems of control are rarely dismantled by force alone. They are undone when their underlying assumptions are exposed, when people begin to question the narratives that made those systems appear necessary. And so the critique is not simply about policy, it's about imagination. Can a state imagine security without domination? Can it conceive of safety that does not depend on another population's restriction? Can it see its strength not only in military capacity, but in ethical restraint? These are not questions, and these are not easy questions, but they are necessary questions. Because in the end, the measure of a society is not how it behaves when it feels safe, but how it acts when it feels afraid.